They don't say it, but they show you in this one way. When you care for someone with avoidant attachment, you learn to read between the silences. They don't express love the way others do. They don't confess emotions in moments of vulnerability, because vulnerability has never been safe ground for them. They say, I need space, when they feel too much. They go quiet when they're overwhelmed. They act distant, not because they don't feel love, but because they do. And that love scares them. Because to a dismissive avoidant, love isn't light and ease. Love is risk. Love is exposure. Love means giving someone the exact power that once hurt them. So when they start to fall for you, when their feelings deepen, they don't show up with clarity or warmth. They retreat. They test. They shut down conversations you're craving. They hide inside a self they built to survive. And it leaves you wondering, are they confused? Or do they just not care? But the truth is quieter, more subtle, and you only see it when you're not looking for grand gestures. Because when an avoidant is truly serious about you, they won't tell you first. They'll show you, and they'll do it in one unmistakable way. It's not what they say, it's what they stop doing. When a dismissive avoidant starts to care deeply, you won't see fireworks. You won't get a sudden flood of affection or emotional confessions. What you'll notice instead is what stops. They stop pulling away as soon as things get intimate. They stop creating distance every time the connection gets real. They stop using independence as a shield against closeness. Because something in them, often wordless, often unconscious, begins to shift. They stop fighting the connection. They stop needing space to breathe after every vulnerable moment. They stop looking for exit routes in every quiet conflict or emotional conversation. Not all at once, not perfectly, but consistently enough that you feel it. They're staying. And for someone with avoidant attachment, staying is not passive. It's active. It's intentional. It's vulnerable. Because in their world, closeness has always been a threat. So when they stay, when they remain emotionally present, it's not because they stopped fearing it. It's because they finally feel something stronger than fear. Safety. Not because you proved you were safe. Not because you convinced them to love you, but because you gave them something they've rarely experienced in relationships. A love that doesn't chase. A love that doesn't perform. A love that doesn't collapse into urgency. And in that calm space, they find themselves choosing what they've always run from. They don't need you less. They trust you more. It's easy to mistake the avoidant's calmness for disinterest. Their stillness can feel like emotional flatness. Their independence, like distance. But that's only true when they're not emotionally invested. When an avoidant is serious about you, they don't become more needy. They become more stable. They don't need constant contact. They don't crave reassurance every few hours. They're not expressive the way anxious types are. But what changes is something deeper. They begin to trust. And when a dismissive avoidant trusts you, you'll notice it in the things they stop guarding so fiercely. They let you in, to the schedule they once protected, the emotions they once avoided, the parts of themselves they never thought anyone could see. They begin to share, not because they're trying to impress or connect, but because they feel safe enough to be seen. And this is the moment most people miss. They think love should look loud, dramatic, clearly expressed. But for an avoidant, love whispers. It shows up in consistency, in patience, in the way they ask how your day was. Not out of habit, but out of care. You'll know they're serious, because they stop retreating when you get close. They stay, not because they need you less, but because they finally trust that needing you doesn't mean losing themselves. The real sign, they start making room for you. For most dismissive avoidance, Life is designed around protection. Their routines, their time, their space, all structured to preserve autonomy. So even when they date or connect, they often do so with boundaries you can't quite touch. They make time, but just enough. They share, but only pieces. They care, but from a distance they control. But when they're serious, everything shifts. They don't just tolerate your presence. They make room for it. They adjust their routines. They open up their schedule. They introduce you to people they actually care about. And most telling of all, they begin to consider you in their decisions. Not just the big ones, the quiet ones too. What once felt like a closed life starts to open, not in a way that overwhelms them, but in a way that slowly welcomes you in. Not to merge, not to lose themselves, but to say, in the only way they trust, "There's space for you here, and I made it on purpose." This is their version of commitment. Not loud promises, but deliberate inclusion. They build you into their world, brick by careful brick. And if you watch closely, you'll see it in everything they allow. Because allowing is their way of loving. They still struggle, but they stop pushing you away. Falling in love doesn't erase their fears. Even when an avoidant is serious, the old patterns don't disappear. There will still be moments when they need space. Times they go quiet without warning. Triggers that pull them back into self-protection. But here's the difference. They stop using distance as a weapon. In the past, every moment of emotional overwhelm meant withdrawal. It meant silence. It meant pushing you away before you could get too close. But now, they catch themselves. They might still need time, but they communicate it. They might still feel flooded, but they stay present longer. They might still shut down in conflict, but they come back faster. Because when they're serious, their instinct to flee is no longer stronger than their desire to stay. They begin to understand that closeness doesn't mean engulfment, that your care isn't a trap, that you're not trying to control them. You're just trying to love them. And in return, they try to. They try not to run. They try not to hurt you in the ways they always have. They try to stay, even when it's hard. That effort, quiet as it may be, is the avoidant's most vulnerable form of love. They may not say, "I'm all in," but you'll feel it in their willingness to stop pushing you out. What real commitment looks like through an avoidant's eyes. Commitment, for most avoidants, is never about the label. It's not the title, the timeline, or even the promises made. It's about safety. It's about being with someone who doesn't demand access, but earns it patiently, without pressure. So when they're serious, truly serious, you'll notice it in the subtlest, yet most powerful way. They begin to let love feel safe inside them. They stop viewing it as a threat to their freedom. They stop assuming they'll lose themselves in connection. They stop treating you like the enemy they have to guard against. Instead, they start letting you into the details of their life. They let you see the mess, not just the curated version. They bring you into the moments they once kept private, and slowly, their future starts to sound different. Not always in sweeping declarations, but in gentle moments of inclusion. When we go there, next time I was thinking we could, that we may seem small, but for an avoidant, it's everything. Because it means they're no longer just planning for survival. They're making room for you. Real commitment, to them, isn't about possession. It's about allowing. Allowing love. Allowing closeness. Allowing the risk. Because you made it feel safer than silence ever did. So no, the avoidant won't always say they're serious. They may never say it the way you hoped. But if you look closely, you'll see it in the way they stay. When it would have been easier to run, you'll hear it in the way they begin to share. What was once locked away, you'll feel it in the steadiness, replacing their push and pull. And most of all, you'll know they're serious when they stop hiding behind distance and start showing up with presence. Not loudly, not perfectly, but willingly. Because for the avoidant, that's what love looks like when it's finally real.